Alrighty, hello everyone. Uh, Hi, I'm Steve. You may remember me from such short one-shots as that time that we had a goblin adventure that we solved by cuteness, and the other one-shot where I played an 80s version of a knight. Today we will be playing Pathfinder, and for once, I'm here in the GM seat. But before we start into the fun stuff, we have to talk about some other fun stuff. So, as you probably know, last Sunday began our On the Wild Side week. This week is in celebration of World Wildlife Day, which can be traced back to its establishment just 10 years ago by the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora in the United Nations General Assembly. This is a day, that being Sunday, to recognize the unprecedented threats such as biodiversity loss, habitat destruction, and climate change that wildlife populations worldwide are facing. By supporting Rewild this week, it is to raise awareness about these threats, promote sustainable practices, and preserve the natural world, as well as all the life that inhabits it. So, what kinds of things are in store this whole week? Get ready for conservation focused and wacky animal fun this week. I will say this adventure will probably not be quite as wacky as the previous adventure with the motorcycle riding mice. I apologize for that.
Just
Um,
you wait.
just yeah, we'll see. We'll see. You never know. Pathfinder is a strange game sometimes. Um, But aside from that, so we're actually supporting two charities this week. Um, so the second charity is centered on Palestine. We recognize that as many eyes as possible must stay on Palestine in its people's time of need. So we are trying to support the Palestine Children's Relief Fund in addition to our conservation charity of choice, Rewild. Donations to both charities will work towards the same donation goal. All that being said, it is time for some Pathfinder, but first, I must introduce our intrepid heroes for this superior, Lake Superior, that is, Pathfinder adventure. Uh, for the sake of lulls, let's just go down the order of things on the live stream tab. So, first up, Corvus Duskwalker. Tell us about yourself, what kind of character you're playing, and going off of what the last couple of games have done, tell us about your favorite freshwater fish.
All right. Well, my name is Corvus, otherwise known as Luke. Uh, I'm playing Bratamos, half-elven ranger cleric, which is a character that I made all the way back in second edition D&D. So, and I've brought him into the present era, and so I'll be doing all the tracking and the healing and all the fun stuff like that. As far as my favorite freshwater fish, uh, I gotta say, I like haddock. Is that a freshwater fish? That's a freshwater fish, right? Haddock, cod,
Maybe.
something like that.
Hmm.
The edible ones. I like the edible ones.
You know what? That's absolutely fair.
Close
That's
enough.
absolutely valid. Um, Next on the list, we have Danella.
Oh, me. Okay. I'm trying to think of some fish. Hi everyone. I'm Daniela everywhere on the internet. Tonight I am playing Nev, who is a silence and snow witch. My favorite freshwater fish is salmon because I have a little creek near my apartment where little salmons run through, and it's really cute.
Nice. I don't know if you knew this, but when it comes to the Great Lakes, salmon were actually introduced way later down the line.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay. Next up, skipping over our amazing tech support, Rise.
Hi, that's me. I'm Rice. Let's see. What are we doing tonight? Tonight we are playing Weil. Weil is an elven summoner with a beast eidolon, and he's definitely got a little undying ancestry in there, so he takes to the water quite naturally, being all kinds of amphibious and such. And honestly, one of the most fascinating freshwater fish I think is the pallid sturgeon, which is basically a dinosaur swimming in the rivers. And they're super neat looking, funky looking. Look them up if you get a chance, because yeah, they look weird, man. But yeah, they've been around forever.
Interesting.
All right, and last but certainly not least, RPG Theologian. What do you got?
Somebody had to take the sturgeon. That was gonna be mine. God. So I grew up around the Great Lakes, Lake Erie. I like it. Sans the sturgeon, I'm gonna go with the largemouth bass because they're just awesome.
Classic.
They're beautiful, beautiful fish. And as a vegetarian, I don't eat them, so they're just gorgeous. But I grew up eating them. I'm sorry,
And
mea culpa. But
they sing to you when you put them on your wall.
yeah, and they sing yes. But tonight I will be playing Olgro, the Goblin Alchemist, who may or may not, most likely won't be a pyromaniac, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, fire on the Great Lakes. What could go wrong? And I, of course, am Steve, your humble GM for the evening. This is my first ever Pathfinder adventure, and I'm sure nothing will go wrong except for the things that have already gone wrong. And
Which has been nothing. Everything's been just
tech support. What?
Yeah, obviously. My favorite is actually the American paddlefish. Funnily enough, a close relationship to the sturgeon, to the point where the two can actually interbreed, creating something called a sturtlefish. But the thing basically looks like a basking shark that has a cricket bat taped to its nose. Fascinating creature. But we're not just here to
might
talk
be my
about
new favorite word.
Yeah. We are not here just to talk about fish. We are here to play Pathfinder and kind of indulge a fantasy of mine, a goal, a bucket list thing, if you will, to engage and play in a setting that's basically a fantasy Lake Superior. So with that, let us descend into the world, maybe of Galarian, maybe of a similar world. Let me just get my notes all set up here. So we begin, as all things should be, with an ancient rhyme. Well, not a rhyme. An ancient verse, if you will. The legend lives on from the ancient ones on down, from the big lake they call Gichigami. The lake, it is said, never gives up her dead when the skies of autumn turn gloomy. That is the rhyme told far and wide of the great freshwater sea, and not without cause. Gichigami is a harsh and frigid locale of deep, dark waters, ringed by deep, dark forests. To underestimate her is a grave mistake only made by the foolhardy and the dead that yet haunt her depths. But Gichigami is not only a place of danger. Every part of her teems with life. Creatures, great and small, fierce and peaceful, ordinary and extraordinary, have found homes here. Mortals have lived on the shores of this inland sea from time immemorial, growing fields of wild rice and recording the many deeds of their nations on birch bark scrolls. Of late, however, The natural riches of the area have drawn the attention of the greater world populace. Fur trappers, sailors, lumberjacks, fishers, merchants of all kinds have made new towns that dot the coastline. Unfortunately, along with these newcomers, a menace has emerged that threatens the entire region. Invasive species. Plants and animals brought in the holds of ships, the buckets of fishermen, and in the aquaria of thoughtless eccentrics that are outcompeting the native species. Druids, rangers, and invested citizens have come together to fight against the imbalance with management and culls, but there are some things in these waters that require more direct methods of management. Creatures magically spawned both accidentally and purposefully in lands far from the inland sea, gifted with great and terrible power to dominate their environment, have taken root here. They must be dealt with by sword and spell. These brave adventurers before me are members of Blue Team, a guild of adventurers dedicated to combating these more hostile native elements, while protecting both magical and mundane facets of the local natural resources. And they do it out of the city of Sweetwater Cove. While the settlement may seem small to the sprawling metropoli that dot other parts of the world, Sweetwater Cove, or simply the Cove for short, is far and away the largest newcomer community on the I knew I was going to trip up at some point. On the shores of Gichigami. Largely built from green wood, cut from the surrounding forests under the watchful eye of those who have managed these lands for aeons. The cove is a haphazard maze of homes, shops, docks, and bustling industry. Sailing ships and steamers that have come through customs at the ice water locks. You'd think I'd remember the things I wrote and read 24 times. Further down the shore, these ships wow. These boats float gently in the harbor, waiting to unload their cargo or take more on to transport lands far and near. While the city and the lake seem to usually share a sense of restless energy for weeks now, they've been like opposites. While mortals scurry every which way on uneven planks, seeing to their business, the waters beyond the harbor seem oddly still, almost lifeless. Not a wave or wisp of wind to stir the cold, dark waters below. It is clear from the view at the Azure Lighthouse, a squat keep perched on a cliff high above the low harbor, that something strange is happening. It is here that the adventuring guild Blue Team has set up their headquarters, and it is here where we start our game. So, enough of my gabbing. I want to know what your characters are doing just on a regular, let's say, Thursday morning. Are you up in the lighthouse seeing to official business? Are you down in the town itself? Are you on the docks, or maybe some remote corner? Let's start with Rise. What's your character doing?
So, Weil is maybe not the most dedicated person when it comes to doing things, like paperwork and preparation and training and, all these sorts of things. So, probably about this time of day, on this kind of a day, you probably find Weil down at the shore, um, at least partially submerged, if not entirely submerged, basically wrapped up in what is a very large snake. The snake's name is Vi, and that's his companion. Vi basically looks very similar to an oversized. If you're familiar with it, there's a snake called the Eastern Massasauga, which is a rattlesnake that lives kind of in that area and up through Ontario. Only venomous snake in Ontario, by the way. But the coloration is a little bit more blue and white, as is Wild. He's got very pale skin with blue lines, and he's just kind of drifting there at the very edge, sound asleep, because he's kind of a lazy bastard.
Excellent, excellent. Um, let's go with Danila. What will we find your character doing on this lovely, quiet Thursday morning?
Nev is taking a bit of a stroll through the nearby woods, just on the edge of the town, kind of starting daily, like little daily conversations with any nearby animals, letting her own little icy squirrel familiar kind of hop amidst the trees and socialize with the other wildlife. As she's taking a stroll, any like nearby children that can be like looking into the woods, she'll hide behind any forestry or bushes and attempt to playfully scare them, as she often does. Either whether or not she's successful, I'm not sure, but she will occasionally hope to hear some little screams and squeals and see them scurrying back into town.
Well, I mean, you know, young kids, even if
Mhm.
they're not legitimately scared, they will get themselves to be scared because it's just so fun
Perfect.
sometimes.
It is fun.
Excellent. RPG Theologian.
Oh. So Olgro, the goblin alchemist, is just kind of wandering around the market, picking up his reagents and ingredients that he needs for his various concoctions. And I think he probably sees the other two. Kind of like, what are they doing? Oh, playing with the kids. Okay. Oh, the snake now. And then just turns back and is picking out different spices that he uses, that he throws in to experiment. Because you never know.
You never know.
Something new may help. A little bit of sorghum, a little bit of cinnamon, that can help with the tar.
Excellent, excellent. And I believe we only have one adventurer left. I believe that would be Corvus.
Bratamos is probably wandering the outskirt perimeter of our little encampment with his companion Faralos, and probably heading down to the lake to do some bow fishing and enjoying the quiet, calm Thursday morning, if not a little bit chilly.
Excellent, excellent. Um, so perhaps individually, perhaps as a group, you are summoned to the lighthouse. Seemingly an urgent matter has come up. Say a scrawny half-elf kid comes against each of you individually, like, okay, the boss, the boss has a job for you. It's a big one. You might want to keep your sharp and magical things on you. Come on, let's go. You're on duty. Let's go.
This kid comes running up. Wild would have basically sat straight up in the water, just dripping off of this like aquamarine hair and his bright blue slitted eyes, and just stared at him for a second. Oh wait, you're real. Okay, yeah, let's go. Come on,
you
snake.
want like a towel or something?
He just kind of looks at him and tilts his head and then starts shaking like a dog or something. Just yeah, that's good enough.
Fair enough. So each of you are brought to the lighthouse. Once upon a time, it was just a lighthouse, a place to provide a guiding light to ships coming into the harbor. As fortunately, Ichigami, as beautiful as it is, the waters can be treacherous as well as the rocks beneath. In fact, you've heard of distant landmarks being known as things like Death's Door or Thunder Bay. You know, very treacherous locale, so it's nice to have a way to actually get your boats from point A to point B without being completely capsized. But now it looks almost like a barracks. There are trainees and veterans alike here honing their skills, learning about the native flora and fauna of the lake, as well as some of the threats that are on the horizon. You're led up to the observatory, where a familiar supervisor waits for you. This would be Garug, an old, gripply adventurer, long since gone to seed. He resembles kind of a fat bullfrog, draped in kind of a heavy coat. His fading, slick skin is puckered with old scars from his past life, wading into battle. His yellow eyes, though, they're still quick and keen as ever, even if most of the perception checks he does have to do with paperwork and rosters these days. He's kind of hunched over his desk, kind of near the observatory window, grumbling about this, that, and the other. But as you enter, he kind of looks up with his heavy head. Great. Punctual as always.
We have been summoned for an urgent matter, no?
You have, and I appreciate the speed at which you got here. I wish I had better news, but I don't.
Well,
Yes,
we
it doesn't
came as
involve
fast
fried
as my
potatoes.
short legs could carry me. So, you know.
Sure enough. Well, unfortunately, a disturbing situation has come up. Oh, a few weeks ago, a ship somehow muscled through the customs port over at the ice water locks. Didn't even get to do an inspection. Just broke through the containment barrier. Don't know how, maybe with magic or mechanical, something along those lines. Then, tried to make its rounds. I don't know if it was smuggling or just had an impatient captain, but went along like didn't do anything wrong. Like we weren't hot on their trail, but dang, it's a fast ship. Must have new steamer engines or something, but that's neither here nor there. As it was trying to get back towards the locks, it ran aground on a reef. But we checked the maps. There shouldn't be a reef where it ran aground. That should just be open water. We may have found the reason why. And he kind of signals some of his aides to larger orcish figures. Bring her in, ladies. I thought we'd have to deal with this sooner rather than later, but I was really hoping it would be later. With a heavy These two laborers set a large, it seems like a cage with a cloth draped over it. Right. Gonna warn you, this ain't pretty. Pulls the blanket off the cage. Inside is a hodag. Kind of an elongated, green-furred, kind of reptilian, kind of mammalian creature. Large horn spines in a ridge down its back. Short, squat, muscular body. And it's dead. It is very dead. It's also covered in muscles.
Okay.
I don't mean muscle. I mean
Ah,
little muscles. Like half of it is just covered in these little kind of grayish, it almost looked like slate muscles.
do I know anything about these creatures that would make the presence of them significant?
Make me a nature check or survival, whichever is higher.
You got it.
Ooh, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. So, hodags are generally found in the deeper forests. Uh, they actually go after prey of a canine nature, but it's not unusual to see them down by the shore, taking advantage of any fish that might have washed up or pecking at the remains of an eagle's breakfast.
Olgro's gonna while they're doing that, Olgro's gonna lean in, pulling out a thin knife from his alchemist pack, and pop off one of those muscles. He wants to
Okay.
examine that.
Is this like a really bad art project?
You'll see in a second. So you go in with your knife, you kind of reach through the bars of the cage, start to try to pry one open. The half of the hodag that's covered in muscles starts to move.
Oh, in that case, Olgro definitely pulls back. It's like, wait a minute.
Okay.
I thought this thing was dead. And he looks at the others. This thing looks dead.
Is it dead?
And Olgro will kind of just poke the flesh. Yeah, gently. He's not stabbing, to cause a wound. He just, like a little pinprick
Okay. So
with his dagger.
go ahead and give me a medicine check if you would.
Yep. Hold on a second. Let me bring that up. That is going to be... Where is it? Sorry, I'm so unused to Foundry. I apologize
Perfectly okay.
for the wait.
Yeah.
Where? There we go. Found it. That is going to be... I'm actually trying to find it on my sheet. I am so sorry for the... There we go.
That's okay.
Found it. Woohoo!
That'll do it.
Nat
Oh.
20, that's what I'm talking about.
Yep. Yep. There we
Okay.
go. Sorry, I'm sorry for the
Trust
wait,
me.
everybody, but it was worth the wait.
Worth the wait, yeah.
Dang, Skippy. Okay, so you start kind of poking and prodding. There's a couple things you notice. First off, the way the muscle covered half is moving does not align with how it should move as like a natural creature.
Hmm.
This thing is moving like a marionette is controlling it.
Interesting.
You hear like tendons straining and bones grinding as this thing awkwardly tries to claw at the cage. The half that is not covered in muscles, you kind of poke and prod at it. You actually uncover a couple of wounds. These would have been pre-mortem. They're large and large circular wounds. They almost look like a lamprey's, but way larger than you've ever heard of any creature suffering, even with the invasive ones.
And he's a sailor. That's his background, is he's a sailor, so he's going, wait a minute. What? God. Guys, so, oh no. Something has, and he points that out to the other three, saying, look at these bites. It's like a lamprey. But I've never seen anything like it. But the way it's
Touch it, it'll eat your finger.
Well, no, don't touch it. Do not touch it.
But if it is deceased and we are perplexed by this, I can attempt to speak to its spirit, ask it a single question if we wish.
Oh, good idea. Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah,
there's an idea.
Yeah, because like as soon as like we've pretty much figured out that this thing is essentially dead, but it's still moving around, like Ratamos's like cleric brain takes over, and he like goes to draw his bow and just put one in its head, but then
Yeah, because Ogro would definitely share that something is pulling the strings. It's dead, but not quite, but kind of. Is like,
but when
he can't make sense of that because he's
Right.
he's an alchemist, so he wants to play with it a little bit more. He's like, what's going on here? He's a scientist.
but yeah, once is it Neve?
Nev.
Nev, okay.
Nev.
But once Nev says something about like, oh, I can possibly communicate with it, he lowers the bow, unknocks the arrow, and kind of steps back to like let you do your thing.
I only have an opportunity to ask one thing. Perhaps I shall ask how it died? Or does anyone have a more specific request?
I mean, that sounds good.
How many questions can you ask?
Just the one, unfortunately.
Mm.
Can only keep that connection with the spirit for a very short period of time, and it'll only have enough energy to respond with one single answer.
Yes. How? Not who,
How?
but how.
How did it die? I'll try to use my Fate Spirit Speaker.
I love it.
Awesome. So I will start to chant something slightly guttural, slightly like very foreign, underneath my breath. So it's barely audible, but you hear these kind of like hushed words coming out. I'll kind of start contorting my hands and arms in a way that is very similar to the movements of the natural animal. And I will try to kind of put on like a slight performance to show that I am someone who is wishing to peacefully commune with it as I cast this feat.
And as I recall, you're an animal whisperer, correct?
I think yes, I am.
Okay, so this should actually work.
Okay.
So the first thing you notice when you feel the latent spirit of this creature get stirred, it is in pain. The soul is feeling some kind of effect. You do get a response for how did you die? And the gist of it is long somethings came out of the water, like snakes, but also like fish. they latched on, and I couldn't get them off. They drank my lifeblood, and I collapsed into the surf.
I will attempt to make like a physical gesture of gratitude as that connection dissipates, and then I'll relay that to everyone else in the room.
Now, is that
Something
Oh,
fish-like, something snake-like, something rather vampiric in nature. Sounds terrifying, and sounds like a terrifying way to go. But it essentially drank its life, as though it was life or fluid.
I mean, it sounds like some kind of like lamprey or giant
Yeah.
leeches or something.
that
Exactly.
does
That explains the bites. The
Okay.
bites.
that
And-
explains what Olgro said. Now, from what I know of lampreys, they don't typically suck the blood of their victims like a vampire, as I recall, right?
Normally, that is correct.
They just kind of eat
Um,
things.
It's true. They just kind of gnaw a little, they nibble a little wound and just kind of hang on. But as you guys are kind of discussing this, Grug will try to explain a little bit. Yeah, that unfortunately lines up with what we've been seeing. So it looks like we got a twofer. A couple of things that might have been hiding in the bilge of the ship that just crossed our waters. First, on that there critter, are called grave shell mussels. They're kind of like quagga mussels. You know, they're little, oval shaped, and they cling to things with little threads called byssal threads. These things, though, they came from a land that was just choked in death and dark magic. So these things learned how to take advantage of the copious amount of bodies that were in their rivers and the necromantic energies that were awash in those waters. So these things attached to a dead body, those little threads are able to animate it. And it seems like they function like a hive mind. So they just go out, anything that gets in front of them, they start to maul it so that they can have more of their young attached to it and just keep going. If there isn't anything there to prey upon, they just keep walking till they find something.
Sound lovely.
Yeah, not necessarily something you want in your waters.
So it's not quite undead then.
It's close enough. These things run on necromantic energy.
But if I pierce the brain, it still functions.
Basically, yeah, but from what I've read, and he brings up this really ominous looking book, full, got the skull on it, it's got the glowing red eyes on the cover. So, from what I've read, opens it, page through, turns one page, there's a scream and a ghostly, figure rising. Wrong chapter. All right here. So, unfortunately, running on necromantic energy, any kind of magic, comes with a few risks. One of them is if you take too much damage, you can cause the thing to short circuit. A lot of necromantic energy with nowhere to go causes the whole thing to seize up, and the muscles just can't handle it. So, they're tough, but they're not invincible.
Well, this is why magic is useless, and we need science, chemicals and formulae, and
I would
poking
not
out
go
the
so far
neurons.
to say that magic is useless in this situation.
Touche. Touche, Nev.
Hmm.
But science can help us. Fiddle.
You're gonna like Val when you meet him. I can already tell.
Val?
Who?
Who's
You'll
Val?
see. You'll see. The other of the two fur, something called a lamb predator. Lamprey, lamb predator.
Clever.
Basically, these things are just giant lampreys. And like what you're able to glean from that thing, they are way more aggressive. And as it turns out, they have a really nasty symbiotic relationship with those gravestone or graveshell mussels.
Now,
The graveshell mussels?
There's an important question.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
these, these bites? And Olgro will heave over the body of the critter, of the fish,
Mm-hmm.
to point out, because he's 3 feet tall, so he's hefting it, and he's a scrawny goblin. And then he points at the bites. He says, how do we know these are from one thing, let alone multiple things, let alone, how do we know they're only about, say, this small? What if it is something from a bigger creature? What if there's a bigger creature that has tentacles which can latch on? How do we know?
Been reading
You've
too many
read those
books.
books from the East Coast, haven't you?
Well, that's what I do, but
Fair
I'm an
enough.
alchemist. Come on. Gosh.
That's fair. That's fair. Let me take the worry out of you. Reaches behind the desk, takes out a jar of alcohol. This thing is like the size of like a milk gallon. A head that barely fits in the jar. It is very lamprey-like. But you see among the rings of teeth, you see a little, it almost looks like the mouth of a mosquito. Jagged and used for getting right to the arteries. That's one. And from what we can tell, there are more. Apparently these things do grow pretty quick, even in a few weeks.
Great. So we got fat lampreys and zombie mussels. Okay.
I haven't
What
gotten
do
to
you
the
call
bad part yet.
Oh, there's more.
What?
That's not the bad part?
That's the first part of the bad part. Let me tell you the rest of the bad part. So, the rest of us here are gearing up for an operation. This thing is an all hands situation. I think we can all agree on that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So, here's the problem. The wreck I mentioned before, it's only a league or two away from the lair of the water panther, the Mishipeshu. If you wish to know more, you can give me a religion, history, or arcana check.
That is
Religions or Arcana.
You said history, religion, or arcana?
Correct.
And
Or
I'm
nature,
not-
actually.
Or
Oh, hey, there
nature.
we go. Okay, good. I'm not bad at that one.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking too.
22, 24. Oh, you're rolling really good.
Are we going to roll?
I'm
No, we
going
are
to go
not
with
going to roll.
nature.
Oh.
And gotta save your natural 20s, guys.
Yeah, I do what I can.
Just old
That
Grove
is that.
is just learning everything. Just,
Apparently, so I would say most of you have heard of this thing. Olgro, you've gone through like a full tome on this thing. So the Mishipeshu, to call it a creature would be inadequate. It is an entity. Physical, but extremely powerful. Um, Basically, it is the lake. It is the physical manifestation of the power of the underworld and of the weather. These things are basically a combination of big cat, dragon, and fish, and they govern most aspects of the lake to the point where the people who have lived here for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years, regularly make offerings to it of tobacco and copper. And even then, it's known as having a bit of a temper. It is not. It is a figure of nature, but it is not friendly nature. It is, you will know my fury and my vengeance kind of nature. It is intimately connected to Kichigami, to many lakes. It is not the only one, but this one is, like, there are
This
other
is
Mishipeshu.
like-
This is the Mishipeshu.
Yeah. And basically, as soon as Olgro hears that name, he just starts cussing under his breath. He's like, in goblin speak. He just, and the others probably have heard him do that because they're part of the same blue team. He just starts just walking around cussing a bit like the father from A Christmas Story.
So, yeah, we really don't want to bother Mishpeshu.
No.
Generally regarded as a bad idea. Uh, yeah.
Well, define bother, because we are sending you over there.
Come to the notice of.
Yeah, we basically want to make sure that this thing isn't. Oh, the other bad thing.
There's more.
Yeah, this is not a good day for any of us. Trust me on this.
it started real well.
So here's the thing. You know that old saying, the lake doesn't give up her dead?
I've heard it.
I am
So
well aware.
yeah. So once a body goes down in this here lake, it doesn't degrade, it doesn't decompose.
Right.
Right.
And there have been people living here for about 100,000 years, maybe more. Animals have been around longer. So there are hundreds of millennia worth of dead bodies down there for the
Right.
mussels to feed on and for the lamprey to benefit off of.
But will the dead come back? That's the question. It doesn't matter. No. Oh, we're.
So the zombie muscle
Criminy.
got
That's
lots
the-
of bodies to play with, is what you're
Yep.
saying. That's fantastic.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, so basically, we're sending you to go make sure that the entity that controls most aspects of this lake isn't getting taken over by a bunch of necromantic muscles.
That would be good to
And
know.
the thing doesn't
Yes.
like being talked to in the first place. Ah!
Have fun storming the castle.
Is it too late to put it in a vacation request?
When do we
And
leave?
unfortunately, you need a 2-week notice for that.
That is
Just
2
be
weeks from my death sound.
All
When do
right.
we
Well, I
leave?
mean, we're not sending you out on a little dinghy. All right. We're sending you with Val, and you guys know who Val is roughly. Um, Probably not someone you run into regularly. He's more of the um. So there's you guys, the military wing of Blue Team, essentially, and then there's the scientific team who keeps track more of the, the ecology, the chemistry of the lake to make sure everything's on the up and up. Val's in that branch. In fact, he's referred to as the Limnomaster, the master of limnology, because I had to put that in there.
Yes.
Or we're sending you with Val on his ship. Mostly because, as you may have noticed, there's no wind. So he's the only one with an active steamer. On the plus side, it's made of metal, so it's going to be a lot harder for you to get capsized.
Well, that's always a plus.
Yeah.
One less thing.
Yep.
But we're noisier.
A bit noisy. What was the last thing?
I said no, just one less thing to worry about.
Gotcha.
Capsizing. And you
All right.
were all worried about how this day was going.
Yeah. All right. Well, Blue Team, go meet Val down by the docks. Should be on the west end of the docks. If you hit the swan boat ride, you've gone too far.
We should probably close the swan boat rides for.
Perhaps that would be wise.
Yeah, you you tell the manager of those yourself.
I will. Thank you.
Fair enough. Okay. So
It's like the big fish thing all over again. They won't even close the beach, even though people are getting.
oh yeah. So do you guys go down to the docks?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I'm keeping an eye out for the manager of the Swan Rides if I see him on the way.
Okay.
Yeah, and Olgro's definitely probably jogging behind the rest of the group who are, I think, twice as tall as him. I mean, Ogro is 3 feet tall.
That's
literally.
actually a good point, and not to slow things down, but like, what are we looking at as we look around the party here? Like, we said what we like our races and our classes, but like, what are we looking at? Description wise.
Um, I would say you guys are a decently outfitted party. People do know you. You know, you're not unknowns in this town.
Okay.
But you're all also level 5.
Right.
So you're not top dogs yet.
Right. But like, what does everybody kind of look like? I mean, like
That's
like
a good question.
like Neve and Weil and Ogro and.
Well, I'm happy to start. Olgro is, you would all know that he's a scientist. He's an alchemist. He plays with chemicals and different, or rather, different thing. He likes to mess around and experiment. However, he does carry a crossbow on his back. You've probably not seen him use it, but he carries one, and there's this odd chamber on the one side.
Interesting.
But he carries different. His waist. The belt that he has on his waist has different tubes and bottles, and he's just packed with different substances and empty bottles to collect other substances.
All right. Anyone want to go next?
Wild tends to stand out a little bit. I mean, he's an elf, not an overly tall one, but the fact that he's like very pale blue white with brighter blue stripes and aquamarine hair and eyes tends to stand out a little bit. He's not overly fond of clothing, so generally it's like a pair of like just below the knee pants, a vest, and the bag thrown over his shoulder. Oh, and there's the very large bluish whitish snake that tends to follow him around everywhere. That tends to stand out a little bit too.
Very cool.
A lot of time he can be found sleeping. That's generally his favorite pastime. So
Very nice.
Nev is an elven woman, maybe close to 6 feet. She has her skin is like a pale, pasty, frostbitten blue. She has long white hair that extends past her hips, and the ends of her strands are kind of clustered in ice. Her eyes are so pale that they nearly look completely all white. And she has a variety of like white and blue skirts and shirts that seem to cling to her skin as though they're perpetually damp. And she has Björn, a pure white squirrel familiar who is always kind of jumping from shoulder to shoulder, who has this kind of perpetual layer of thin frost over his soft fur.
That's very cool.
I love it. I love it.
Bertamos is half elf, probably just over 6 feet tall, 6'1", 6'2". He has kind of lighter brown hair and kind of vibrant blue eyes, and a bit of a goatee going on, and he wears a holy symbol of a rastal around his neck. He's always seen with Faralas, his feline companion, who is kind of like a lynx mountain lion type thing. I believe right now you said you were in like the winter months.
I would say the winds of November should be blowing.
Okay, gotcha. So more fall then. So he's got kind of darker browns, darker greens on, and a cloak that is this interesting mix of like brown and gray, and that when he has it over his shoulders, he's it's hard to tell. It kind of hides his size a little bit, but he is, you guys have seen him. He is quite strong. He's quite muscular, and by his sides he carries a pair of picks, and on his back he carries a composite short bow.
All right. With this motley crew, after a conversation with the manager of the Swan Rides, basically fantasy Karen, but in a managerial position. Following that, which leaves a couple of you, cleaning your ears, making sure they're not ruptured. She was very loud. You continue on. At the end of the docks, sure enough, you do see kind of a squat steamship. Solidly built. It looks a lot more like a warship than it does something that a scientist would use. Has a large engine on the back of it, 2 smokestacks coming up on the rear, and right on the right near the bow says the SS Niske, which, funnily enough, is the same as the workhorse science ship of the School of Freshwater Sciences in Milwaukee. Little tip of the hat there. In front of this steamer is a gnome. Short little guy, bald, save for just a ring of gray hairs around his head. Elderly, has kind of sunken in dark eyes, a bit of a mischievous grin, and a fur coat that looks about 2 sizes too big on him. So he has like a foot or two of coat dragging behind him.
Don't you
And,
have a tailor where you came from?
Believe me, this suits me fine. Hi, glad to meet all of you guys
Nothing
finally.
suits
I'm
you like a
Val.
suit, I guess.
It sounds like I'll be escorting you over to the worst possible imaginable place to be on this lake at the moment.
Yes.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Don't worry,
job.
don't worry, this old girl, Pung Pung, she's seen a lot. She'll get you to where you're going. Don't you worry.
Kind of
it
reminds
be
me of this
back?
orc lady I knew one time. All the power's in the caboose, and the rest of it's just sturdy.
Oh, it's dirty, all right. On the plus side, I don't think we're gonna have to worry about waves today. But come on in. One very important thing. There's gonna be a lot of flashing lights and buttons. Unless I ask you to, please don't touch anything, especially the large red one.
Look directly at the goblin.
And old Gro's probably going, oh, damn gnomes.
And to include it.
He's just got his face in his palm, you know. And he looks at Nev, like, about the weather. Like, really? Are we gonna have waves? Right as he's being looked at about the buttons.
I'm sure our passage will be smooth, as long as we all keep our hands to ourselves.
I can't promise that I don't touch buttons. I just I play with chemicals and liquids, reagents, just shiny stuff. No, that's you big people. Gosh.
I would encourage you to promise. I'll take what I can get.
Bertamos folds his cloak around
I
himself.
cannot make. I guarantee that I will not press a button.
Good
A
enough.
big red button.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I am told to.
I love this group so much. Okay. So you're able to board. Val is not the only one in service here, but he is the only one that's made of flesh. The crew seems to be staffed mostly by automatons.
Very cool.
They're the ones that run, the engine, make sure all the, none of the pipes are leaking, making sure the various flashing buttons, and you do see quite a lot of them, are flashing the right colors. You see a couple of systems that look like they're measuring water chemistry, a couple of depth finders, very highly advanced, especially for a setting like Pathfinder. Seems like if a mad scientist was also a limnologist, essentially, which is basically with half my professors at this school, so kind of in line.
And so old Gro is definitely like, I want to touch it, but I promised. I want to touch it, but I promised. No.
And anytime you get particularly close, one of the automatons just goes, please refrain from touching that button on that particular console.
Fine, I'll find another one.
It's just rinses and repeats for half the journey, doesn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Every couple of
He
minutes,
will
please
find
refrain from
something
pressing
to
that
touch.
button.
Something that he can experiment with. He will.
Oh, I love this so much. So you are able to disembark. You feel, after a few moments to kind of get your sea legs, for a couple of you that shouldn't take very long, especially the Undyne. And eventually you
And
feel...
the sailor.
And the sailor, yeah. I mean, you just have sea legs
Right.
permanently. That's just your thing. Yep, you got the Jack Sparrow
Just
walk down.
bounces off.
Exactly. But soon you feel the rumble and the grinding of the engines coughing to life. Starts to rev up. You see dark clouds start to emit from the smokestacks as, without aid of any wind or sail, you start to disembark. And it is a weird feeling being on the lake and it's still. That is not the Gichigami you guys are familiar with. There should be some waves. There should be energy. If not whitecaps, just something. But it feels like so much energy is lost in the lake. But you do see signs of life. As you sail past, there are eagles wheeling overhead, looking for fish to eat. You see schools of lake trout, like rivers of silver swimming by. You also see schools of fur-bearing trout, which are slightly less shiny and more something you pick out of your laundry. Just kind of rivers of lint. You see creatures that are, more normal. Things like sturgeon, things like paddlefishes, gar, bass, walleye swimming past curiously. You see waterfowl, and a few more interesting things, like lake griffins, a specialty of this area. Rather than the combination of an eagle and a lion, these are combinations of loons and otters. So they're very long. They're okay in the air, terrible on land, but graceful in the water. And then there's the snollygoster, which are, imagine an alligator with no legs and a giant spike on its back and a propeller on its tail. Suffice to say, lumberjacks in the 1800s were on some weird stuff. These are like fearsome beasts. These are things that are in books. I have a book on them. It's weird. There's a reason I wanted to do this as a setting. But there is life in this lake yet. It is not completely still. And thankfully, with the aid of a steamer, you are able to travel at a decent pace across the water. It takes the greater part of the day. See the sun rise, reach its zenith, and just start to fall as you start to get in the vicinity of the island. Before you see the island, you see something else jutting out of the water. The shipwreck. You slowly make your way across the water. You see the very point of the bow sticking up at an angle out of the water. In an area that should just be, like, there should just be darkness below you. It shouldn't be just resting there. But you, sure enough, get closer, closer, you start to make out more of it. And oddly enough, it seems like kind of similar to the boat you're on. Steamer, more mechanized, possibly like something out of Alkenstar from Galarian. You even see a strange mechanism, almost looks like saw teeth on the bow that's sticking up. Figure that might be how they got past the barrier that would have otherwise forced them to cooperate with customs to, prevent all of this.
Think some
And
kind of pirates?
men of fortune, I would say. Not necessarily pirates, but there may have been a reason they wanted to not be searched. Whether that were